The night was calm. The twin moons floated in the sky and the streets were quiet. The alien girl walked beside her mother, their steps soft on the stone path. Her mother's hand held something shining, an old amulet, silver and glowing faintly. It was more than a jewel. It was a memory of family, a symbol of love, a thing worth more than gold. The girl looked at it with pride, her heart warm. She did not know that danger was waiting in the shadows. From the dark corner of the street, figures moved, their eyes glowing red. Robbers, tall and rough, stepped out, their laughter cold. The crowd that had been nearby suddenly grew silent. People pulled back into the shadows. Doors closed, windows shut. No one wanted to be part of what was about to happen. The robbers spread around the mother and daughter like hungry wolves. "Give us the amulet," one robber shouted, his voice sharp like broken glass. The mother shook her head, holding the necklace close to her chest. "This belongs to my family," she whispered, fear in her voice. The leader smirked, his teeth sharp. "Then we will take it." He stepped forward, and in one violent pull he grabbed at the chain. The girl screamed as she tried to stop him, her hands pulling, fighting back. The chain snapped, the sound sharp in the night. The mother fell back to the ground. Her cry filled the air. In the struggle, the robber's claw caught the girl's shirt. The fabric tore, ripping across her shoulder, leaving her gasping in shock. Her face burned with shame, her body trembling. The robbers laughed, their voices cruel. The amulet was in their hands, the family treasure gone. The girl dropped to her knees, clutching the torn cloth close to her chest. Her mother reached out weakly, her fingers shaking. "No, my amulet." The crowd watched from far, eyes wide but feet frozen. No one stepped forward. No one dared to help. Fear controlled them. Fear silenced them. The robbers walked back proudly, holding the amulet, mocking the weak. "See?" the leader shouted. "No one can stop us." They laughed again, the sound like thunder in the quiet street. The girl's tears fell, her body shaking, her heart broken. Her shame was heavy. Her fear endless and her hope gone. The night was cruel, the world seemed empty. But then, from the shadows, another figure stepped forward. Slow steps, steady steps, not afraid. It was a human. His clothes were simple, his eyes calm but burning. With quiet fire, he stood taller than the robbers expected, his hands clenched into fists. The crowd whispered, "A human. Foolish. He will die." The robbers turned and laughed louder. "Another one who wants to be broken." But the human did not move back. His voice was steady. "Give it back," he said, his words sharp and clear. The leader tilted his head, amused. "Or what, human?" The human's eyes did not blink. "Or I will take it." The alien girl looked up, her tears stopping for a moment. Hope flickered in her eyes, but fear was still strong. She had seen humans before. Weak, small, often pushed aside, but this one was different. This one did not tremble. Her mother whispered weakly, "Don't. They will kill you." But the human only stood still, like a wall against the storm. The robbers stepped closer, weapons in their hands, their smiles cruel. The air grew heavy, the silence sharp. The crowd held their breath, waiting to see blood. The girl clutched her torn shirt, her heart racing. The leader of the robbers raised the amulet high, his grin wide. "This is ours now," he said, "and no human can stop us." But the human's voice cut through the night like steel. "Enough." The word was simple, but it carried power. It was not just a sound, it was a promise. The girl's heart skipped, her breath caught in her chest. The robbers blinked, their smiles fading just a little. The human stepped closer, his shadow falling over them. The night that had been filled with fear was now filled with suspense. The crowd leaned forward, unable to look away. Something had changed. Something had shifted, the girl whispered to herself. Who is he? And why is he not afraid? The robbers tightened their grip on their blades, ready for a fight. The human's fists curled tighter, his eyes never leaving theirs. The air trembled with the promise of violence. The girl held her breath, her torn shirt clutched to her chest. Her mother's hand pressed against the ground. Trying to rise, the street was silent. Only the sound of the night wind moving. The story of fear had just turned into the story of defiance. And it began with one human, stepping into the light, saying a single word. Enough. The night air was heavy, every breath filled with silence. The alien girl clutched her torn shirt, her wide eyes locked on the human who stood before the robbers. Her mother's weak voice trembled. Please, stop. They will kill you. But the human did not move back, his feet firm on the ground. The robbers laughed, their voices sharp and cruel. One of them, tall and scarred, stepped forward with a blade. Look at him, he sneered. A human, fragile, bones, soft skin, no claws, no armor. The crowd murmured in agreement. No one believed this human could fight, but the human's face did not change. His voice was steady. Give the amulet back, he said again, his words sharp like a knife. The leader tilted his head, amused by the courage. He dangled the amulet in the air, its silver glow mocking the girl's pain. You want this, human? He asked, his grin wide. Come and take it. The human clenched his fists tighter, his chest rising and falling with calm breaths. The alien girl felt her heart pounding, half in fear, half in strange hope. Then the fight began. The first robber charged, blade flashing under the moon. The crowd gasped, certain the human would fall in one strike, but the human moved, not fast, not flashy, but firm. He sidestepped and drove his fist into the robber's stomach. The sound was dull and heavy. The robber bent forward, choking for air. The crowd went silent, shock spreading like fire. Another robber shouted and attacked, his claws aiming for the human's throat. The human ducked low, his arm rising, blocking with raw strength. Pain flickered on his face, but he did not stop. His other hand struck upward, hitting the jaw. The robber stumbled back. The crowd's whispers grew louder. Impossible. How can a human stand against them? The leader's smile faded just a little, his eyes narrowing. Do not hold back, he barked to his men. Break him. 3 robbers came at once, weapons flashing, claws ready to tear. The human raised his arms, blocking one strike, his body twisting to avoid another. He took a hit to his side, blood rising to his lip, but he kept standing, his fists striking, his will unbroken. Every blow he took, he returned with fire. The alien girl pressed her hands together, her eyes wide, with tears. She had never seen such stubborn strength, such silent fury. Her mother whispered, almost in prayer. Why? Why does he fight for us? The girl could not answer, her heart too full of fear and wonder. The robbers pulled back for a moment, breathing heavy. They had expected an easy kill, not this storm of fists and courage. The leader snarled, stepping forward with the amulet still in his hand. You think you are strong, human? He spat. You are nothing, a weak creature trying to play hero. But the human only wiped the blood from his lip, his voice calm. I am not playing. The leader roared and rushed forward, his claws glowing with strange red fire. The human braced, his body tense, his eyes locked. The clash was loud, claw against fist, strength against strength. The human staggered, pain flooding his body, but he did not fall. He pushed back, driving his knee into the leader's chest, forcing him to stumble. The amulet slipped from the robber's hand, falling onto the stone ground with a sharp sound. The alien girl gasped, her eyes locked on the silver glow. The human bent quickly, picking up the amulet, his fingers closing around it. The robbers froze, their leader's breath ragged, his pride cracked. The crowd whispered again, louder now. He took it back. A human took it back. The human turned, walking slowly to the girl. Every step was heavy, blood still on his lip, his body marked with bruises, but his hand was steady as he held out the amulet. Here, he said softly, his voice quiet but strong. The girl's hands trembled as she reached for it, tears rolling down her face. She pressed it against her chest, whispering, "Thank you." Her mother's weak voice broke the silence. Why did you help us?" The human looked at them, his eyes tired but unbroken. He glanced at the crowd hiding in the shadows, then back at the girl. His answer was simple. his words carrying weight heavier than steel. Because no one else would, the crowd fell into silence again. No one dared to speak. The robbers pulled their leader back, their anger burning but their courage shaken. They had been stopped tonight, but their eyes promised revenge. The human stood tall, not smiling, not proud, just firm. The alien girl clutched the amulet, her torn shirt still pressed close. Her heart was confused. Fear, shame, hope, and something new she could not name. Her mother touched the human's arm gently. You should run. They will come back stronger. But the human only shook his head, his eyes never leaving the dark streets ahead. He had started something, and he was not going to walk away. The night closed in again, silent but heavy with change. The story of weakness had shifted into the story of resistance. One human had drawn a line against fear, and the whole city had seen it. The alien girl's tears still fell, but this time they carried something new, not only pain, but also hope. And in the shadows above, unseen by most, another pair of eyes watched, cold, sharp, waiting. The leader of the robbers had allies, stronger and darker. The fight was not finished, it had only begun. The morning sun rose slowly, its light spilling over the alien city. Streets that had been filled with fear last night now looked quiet, but the silence was heavy. Whispers moved from door to door, from window to window. Did you see him? People said. A human, he fought them, and he did not fall. Some voices carried doubt, some carried wonder, but all carried fear, because everyone knew the robbers would not accept defeat. The alien girl sat outside her broken home, the amulet in her hands. Her torn shirt had been sewn roughly by her mother's tired fingers, but no stitching could heal the shame she still felt. Every time she looked down at the torn fabric, her chest tightened. She clutched the amulet closer, whispering to it as if it could answer. Why did he fight for us? Why didn't he walk away like everyone else? Her mother sat nearby, her body weak from last night's fall. She gazed at the street with tired eyes, knowing danger was not over. They will return, she said softly. And when they do, they will not come alone. The girl lowered her head, her heart sinking. Hope and fear pulled inside her like two storms clashing. Then footsteps echoed, steady and calm. The girl lifted her eyes and froze. It was him, the human, walking down the street carrying a small bag. The neighbors peeked through windows whispering, "He came back." Why? He stopped in front of the girl and her mother, setting the bag down. Inside were pieces of bread, fruit, and water, simple food. But in their state, it was a gift greater than gold. The girl's lips parted, but no words came. The human did not speak either, his silence louder than any voice. He simply handed the bread to the mother, bowing his head slightly. The mother whispered, her voice trembling, "Why do you help strangers?" But the human only looked at the ground, then at the amulet in the girl's hands. His eyes said everything, even without words. He was not here for thanks. He was here because it was right. Days passed slowly, each filled with fear and whispers. The robbers had not returned yet, but their shadow was everywhere. The human stayed close, never asking for a place to sleep, never asking for food. He trained instead. Out in the dusty field beyond the street, children peeked at him from far, curious about his strange ways. He lifted heavy stones, ran until his body shook. He fought with wooden sticks against the air, striking again and again. Every movement, sharp, every breath filled with iron will. The alien girl often watched from a distance. At first she thought he was foolish, but soon she began to see something else. He did not fight for glory. He did not fight for pride. He fought to be ready because he knew they would return. And deep in her heart she began to feel a silent bond, a thread of trust. Fragile but real, growing stronger each day. One evening, as the twin moons rose again, the mother warned him, her voice heavy with fear. "They will come back, human. They will bring more men, stronger men, and when they do, you will not survive." The human only nodded, sweat still dripping from his training. "I know," he said quietly, his voice steady. "That is why I must be stronger." The mother looked at him with sorrow, but she saw something in his eyes, a fire she had not seen in anyone for many years. The alien girl turned away, clutching the amulet close. She wanted to believe in him, but fear wrapped around her heart. What if he fell? What if the robbers killed him in front of everyone? She did not want to see another person broken, her eyes filled with tears. Yet she could not stop watching him. Every strike of his stick, every drop of sweat. It was as if he was writing a promise with his body. A promise that he would not bend. But in the shadows, someone else was watching too. From the rooftop of a broken building, a figure crouched low, his eyes cold, his grin sharp. The leader of the robbers, healed but humiliated. He had returned, not with weapons in his hand, but with hatred in his heart. He whispered to the night, "Enjoy your little victories, human. Soon you will bleed." His eyes glowed with red fire as he vanished back into the dark. The girl shivered, though she did not know why. She felt the weight of unseen eyes on her. She held the amulet tighter, her voice shaking. "Please. Don't let him fall, please." The human stood in the field, the moons lighting his figure. His fists were raw, his body bruised, but his stance was strong. Every strike of his stick cracked through the night, every breath came out like thunder. He was alone, but his shadow stretched tall. The crowd that had once whispered weakness now whispered something else. Maybe he is different, they said, but no one dared to speak too loud. No one dared to hope too much. The alien girl watched from her doorway, her heart torn between fear and admiration. She saw the human stand tall against the empty night, and for the first time she whispered not to the amulet but to herself. "He fights alone, but maybe he fights for us all." The bond between them was silent, unspoken but growing. In a city filled with fear, one human had lit a small flame, and though shadows moved closer, waiting to strike again, that flame refused to die. The city slept uneasily, fear crawling through every street like a shadow. The memory of the human stand was still alive, whispered from mouth to mouth. But whispers did not stop danger, whispers did not stop revenge. And deep in the dark corners, the robbers sharpened their blades and sharpened their hate. The alien girl held the amulet every night, pressing it close as if it could protect her. Her mother's voice was always heavy, warning her again and again. They will come back, and when they do, they will bring more. They will bring fury. The girl nodded, but inside she prayed the human would not face them alone. Yet she knew he would, because he was stubborn, because he was unbroken. One evening, under the silver light of the twin moons, the sound of boots echoed. It began faint, like thunder far away, then grew louder. Shadows stretched across the street. Figures, moving like a storm. The robbers had returned. Not just a handful, but twice as many. Their leader walked in the center, his eyes glowing with cruel fire. His laugh filled the street, a sound that made windows shut and doors lock. "Come out, human!" the leader shouted, his voice thick with rage. "You humiliated me, you stole from me. Tonight I take back my pride." The crowd hid in silence. No one dared to step outside. Only the girl and her mother stood frozen, hearts pounding. The leader lifted a long blade, sharp and burning with red light. "This time," he growled, "we will break you and burn your hope." The girl's hands shook. She wanted to scream for the human to stay away, but before her voice could rise, he was already there. The human walked into the street slowly, his shadow stretching under the moons. He carried no weapon, only his fists and his will. His eyes locked on the robbers, his jaw tight. The crowd whispered from their hiding places, "He came again. He will fight again." The leader laughed, pointing his blade toward him. "You are a fool, human. Tonight we will show your blood to the dirt." The human did not answer, his silence sharper than words. He stepped forward, his voice finally calm. "You will not take it." The girl's breath caught, her heart torn between pride and terror. Then the fight began. The robbers rushed like a wave, weapons flashing, eyes burning. The human braced, fists raised, striking back with every ounce of strength. One robber fell to the ground with a broken nose. Another stumbled from a heavy punch. But the human was surrounded, blades cutting at his arms, fists smashing into his ribs. He grunted in pain, blood rising, yet he stood tall, refusing to bend. The leader waited, watching with cold eyes. He wanted the human to bleed slowly, to suffer in front of the crowd. He shouted, "Do not kill him yet, make him crawl, make him beg." The robbers obeyed, circling, cutting, striking like wolves. The human blocked as best he could, but every strike cost him more. His breaths grew heavy, his steps slower, but his fists still burned with fire. The alien girl cried out, her voice breaking the silence. "Stop, please stop," she shouted, clutching the amulet to her chest. But no one listened. The fight raged on. The crowd hid behind their walls, trembling but unable to look away. The human staggered, his body covered with bruises and cuts. One robber struck his back hard, and he fell to his knees. Gasps filled the air. The girl's scream cut through the night. The leader stepped forward at last, his smile wide and cruel. "Look at you now, human," he hissed. "Weak, broken, nothing." He lifted his glowing blade high, ready to strike the final blow. The girl's tears fell fast, her hands shaking as she held the amulet. Her voice cracked with despair. "Please don't let him die, please." The human's eyes met hers for a brief second. Even on his knees, even bleeding, there was no fear in his gaze, only defiance, only fire. The leader's blade swung down with fury. The crowd gasped, the girl screamed, the mother closed her eyes, and the night split open with the sound of steel against flesh. The human fell onto the ground, blood spilling onto the stones. His body trembled, his hand pressed weakly against the dirt. The leader laughed louder than ever, his victory echoing. "See," he roared, "this is what happens to fools who resist us." The robbers cheered, their voices filling the street. The girl screamed again, her heart breaking, her knees weak beneath her, but then through the pain the human's hand clenched. Slowly he pushed against the ground, his body rising inch by inch. Blood dripped, his breaths were ragged, but he was standing again. The laughter of the robbers faded into uneasy silence. The leader's eyes narrowed, his smile vanishing. The human raised his head, his lips stained with blood, and he whispered through broken breaths, "I am not done." The crowd gasped again, whispers spreading like fire. The girl's tears turned into wide eyes of shock and hope. Her mother's voice trembled. "He still stands. How can he still stand?" The leader growled, fury twisting his face. He raised his blade again, but this time there was no laughter. This time, he knew the human was more than he had expected. The fight was not over. It was only beginning, and the night, once filled with fear, now trembled with suspense. The human stood tall against the storm once more, and the alien girl knew. Whatever happened next, the world would never be the same. The human stood in the center of the street, blood dripping from his mouth, his knees shaking but his eyes unbroken. The robbers circled him, growling, their leader glaring with rage. The alien girl clutched the amulet tight against her chest, her tears streaming. Her mother whispered with fear, "He cannot survive, no one can survive this." But the girl could not look away, her heart racing, her breath caught in her throat. The leader stepped closer, his blade glowing red. "You should have stayed down, human," he hissed. "Now, I will tear your spirit apart." The crowd hiding in the shadows held their breath. They had never seen anyone rise again after such a beating, yet the human lifted his fists once more. His body trembling but his will like iron. His voice came out low and steady. "I will never bow." The robbers roared in anger, rushing him from every side. One struck his back, another slashed his arm. Pain tore through him. He staggered but pushed forward, his fist smashing into a jaw, his elbow slamming into a chest. Every strike was desperate, every strike filled with fire. The girl gasped, her eyes wide. How could a broken body still fight? How could blood and bruises still move? "Like this?" The leader growled, watching as his men stumbled back in shock. This was not normal. This was not natural. The human was not fighting only with muscle. He was fighting with something deeper. The leader shouted, "Do not fear him, crush him." But in the hearts of the robbers, doubt had begun to grow. The human's mind flashed with memories. A young boy on Earth, beaten by larger children, told he was weak, a soldier training in the dirt, body broken, mind hardened. Voices of the past echoed inside him. Never kneel, never surrender. Each memory fueled his fire. Each scar built his strength. He was not just a man fighting robbers. He was every fight he had ever survived. The girl's mother whispered in awe, "He is not just strong, he is hope." The girl felt something burning in her chest, something she had never felt before. For the first time, she believed, truly believed, that fear could be broken. She clutched the amulet tighter, whispering, "Please, do not fall." The fight grew wilder, the street echoing with the clash of fists and claws. The human's body was a storm. His pain turned into fuel. He struck with fury, every punch like thunder, every kick like fire. One robber fell, another dropped, groaning on the ground. The leader's eyes narrowed, his anger twisting into something darker. This was no longer a fight for an amulet. It was a fight for pride. The leader stepped forward, pushing his men aside. "Enough!" he roared, his voice shaking the air. He pointed his glowing blade at the human, his teeth clenched in rage. "You think you are strong, human? You think you are more than flesh and blood?" The human wiped blood from his face, his chest rising and falling. "I think I am free," he answered, his voice unshaken. The leader's roar filled the night as he lunged, blade flashing, fury burning. The human met him head-on. No fear, no hesitation. The clash was loud, sparks flying, the ground trembling under their weight. The leader struck again and again, his blade cutting. The human blocked with his arms, pain splitting his skin. But he refused to fall. He pushed back, driving his shoulder into the leader's chest, forcing him to stumble. The crowd gasped from their hiding places. Whispers spread quickly. He fights the leader himself, and he does not fall. For the first time, the robbers' faces showed fear. Their leader, the one they trusted, the one they followed, was being pushed back. The girl's tears turned into fierce cries, her voice breaking through the night. "Fight, human! Fight!" she shouted, her voice trembling with hope. Her mother grabbed her arm, but she did not stop. Her cries reached the human, his tired body burning with new strength. The leader struck again, his blade swinging with deadly speed. The human caught his wrist, twisting it, forcing the blade away. Their eyes locked, hatred against defiance. The leader snarled. But the human growled back, his strength rising from deep inside. With one final strike, the human drove his fist into the leader's chest. The leader gasped, stumbling back, the blade falling from his hand. Silence filled the street, broken only by the sound of heavy breaths. The leader dropped to his knees, glaring with hate but unable to rise. The human stood above him, his body broken but his spirit unshaken. The robbers froze, their courage shattered. They dragged their leader back, retreating into the shadows, their voices filled with rage and fear. The crowd stepped out slowly, eyes wide, hearts pounding. No one had ever seen such a thing. No one had ever dared to believe it was possible. A human had stood against monsters and survived. The girl ran forward, falling to her knees beside him. She touched his arm gently, her tears falling on his. "Bruised skin, you are hurt. Why do you keep fighting?" she whispered. The human looked at her, his eyes soft but burning with fire. "Because if I stop, they win," he answered quietly. The girl held the amulet close, her heart heavy with awe and fear. She understood now. He was more than just a man. He was the answer to silence, the answer to fear. But far in the distance, in the dark, another shadow moved. The leader of the robbers was not finished. He had someone stronger behind him. A warlord, feared by all, a monster in flesh. And soon, he would come. The city had not known peace since the night of the fight. People whispered in every corner, whispering of the human who stood against the robbers. Some whispered with hope, Some whispered with fear, but all whispered the same thing. The robbers would not forgive. The robbers would return, and they did not return alone. From the dark hills outside the city, a new shadow moved. A warlord, taller than any man, armored in black steel, his eyes glowing like fire. His name was feared across worlds, his voice enough to silence villages. The robbers bowed before him, their leader still bruised and angry. The warlord raised one massive hand, his voice low and heavy. "You lost to a human?" he asked, his tone filled with disbelief. The robber leader lowered his head in shame. "He fights like no other, but he is still flesh, still weak." The warlord's laugh shook the ground. "Then I will break him myself. I will break the symbol of hope." The news spread quickly, carried by whispers. "The warlord is coming, the warlord is coming," people said. Fear wrapped around the city again. Heavier than before, doors locked earlier. Children cried in silence, mothers prayed with shaking voices. And in the center of it all, the human trained harder. His fists bruised, his body weak, but his spirit sharper than steel. The alien girl watched him every day, her heart torn. She wanted to tell him to run, to leave, to save himself, but whenever she looked into his eyes, she saw no fear, only determination. Her mother whispered, "He cannot face the warlord. No one can." But the girl shook her head. "He will try because he must." The night came when the warlord finally arrived. The earth trembled under his steps. The sky seemed darker around him. The robbers followed like dogs behind their master, their eyes burning with revenge. The warlord stopped in the middle of the street, his armor shining under the twin moons. He looked around at the silent houses, his voice booming. "Come out, human," he growled. "Kneel before me and I will give you mercy." The doors stayed shut. The people held their breath. But then the sound of footsteps came, slow and steady. The human walked into the street. His clothes torn, his body still bruised, yet his eyes were calm, his fists clenched. He stopped a few steps away from the warlord, his voice quiet but firm. "I will not kneel." The warlord laughed, the sound like thunder. "You are a fool, human. I am strength, I am power, I am fear itself." The human's voice cut through his laughter. "You are nothing but a bully." The alien girl gasped, her hands clutching the amulet tight. Her mother covered her mouth, her heart beating like a drum. No one had ever spoken to the warlord like that. No one had ever dared. The warlord's laugh ended. His eyes narrowed with rage. He lifted his giant blade, black and burning with strange red fire. "Then you die," he said, stepping forward. The human braced, fists raised, his body trembling but ready. The first strike came like lightning, the blade slashing the air. The human barely dodged, the ground splitting where the blade landed. Dust rose, the crowd hiding in the shadows gasped. In terror, the human rushed forward, striking the warlord's chest with his fist. But it was like striking a wall of stone. The warlord did not even move. He grinned, his hand snapping out like a claw. He grabbed the human by the throat, lifting him into the air. The girl screamed, "No," her voice cracking with fear. The human struggled, his face red, his breath cut off. The warlord's grip was crushing, his laughter cruel. "Is this your hero?" he shouted to the crowd. "This weak creature? This broken man?" The crowd trembled, their hearts filled with despair. The girl fell to her knees, clutching the amulet tight, tears spilling down her face, but even as the warlord held him high, the human's eyes still burned. He clawed at the grip, his body shaking, his voice a whisper. "I will not bow." The warlord growled, squeezing tighter, but something changed. The amulet in the girl's hands began to glow faintly, its silver light spilling across the street, soft but strong. The girl gasped, her tears falling onto it, whispering, "Please don't give up, please." The human's eyes caught the glow, his chest burning with fire. He kicked against the warlord's armor, striking again and again. Pain seared his body, but his will grew stronger. With one last desperate push, he tore free from the warlord's grip. He fell to the ground, coughing, gasping for breath. But he stood up again, his fists raised, his eyes unbroken. The warlord snarled, his face twisted with fury. "You dare rise again? You dare defy me? The human spat blood to the side, his voice steady. I dare. The crowd gasped, their whispers rising again. The girl's heart pounded, her eyes locked on him. She saw more than a man now. She saw a flame refusing to die. And she whispered, softly to herself, he fights for us all. The warlord lifted his blade again, his rage burning hotter. The human steadied himself, his body broken but his will endless. The night was heavy, every breath filled with suspense. The fight between fear and defiance was only beginning, and the world held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. The warlord stood tall in the center of the street, his black armor shining under the moons, his blade glowing red. The human faced him with torn clothes, bloody fists and trembling legs. But even with his body broken, his eyes did not bend, his spirit did not break. The crowd hid in silence, their whispers trapped in their throats, afraid to hope, afraid to breathe. The alien girl clutched the amulet tightly, its silver glow soft but alive. Her mother held her hand, whispering, he cannot win, child, no one can defeat the warlord. But the girl shook her head fiercely, her tears streaming. He is not fighting alone. He is fighting for us, she whispered back, her voice trembling with both fear and belief. The warlord raised his blade high, his deep voice echoing, you will die tonight, human, and with you dies the foolish dream of hope. The human wiped blood from his lip, his voice quiet but sharp. Hope will not die, he answered, his fists rising again. The warlord charged forward like a storm, the ground shaking under his heavy steps. The human braced, his fists ready, his chest burning. Their clash was loud, sparks flying, dust rising. The warlord swung again and again, his strikes heavy, each one enough to shatter stone. The human dodged when he could, blocked when he could not, his arms bleeding, his ribs screaming with pain. Yet every time he fell back, he rose again. Every time he staggered, he stood again. The crowd gasped, whispers spreading like fire. How can he still stand? How can one man endure this? The girl's eyes never left him, her hands tight around the glowing amulet. She whispered over and over, don't fall, the warlord growled, his rage growing. You are nothing but flesh and bone, human. You cannot last forever. The human's voice came through his broken breath. Maybe I am only flesh and bone, but my will is stronger than your hate. He rushed forward, fists striking against the warlord's chest, each blow filled with fire. The warlord stumbled slightly, his grin fading. The human roared, his voice filled with fury and pain. For every weak one you hurt, for every voice you silenced, this is for them. He struck again, his fists like thunder, his spirit like a storm. The warlord countered with a crushing swing. The blade sliced across the human's arm, blood spilling. The girl screamed, her heart breaking, but the human did not fall. He gritted his teeth, his eyes burning brighter than before. The amulet, in the girl's hands, glowed stronger, its silver light spreading across the street. The crowd gasped as the light touched the human, shining faintly around him. The warlord froze for a moment, his eyes narrowing. What is this power? He growled. The girl whispered, clutching the amulet tighter. It is not power, it is his will. The human roared and struck again, his fists moving faster, his strength rising. Every punch landed heavier, every movement sharper. The warlord stumbled back, his armor denting under the storm of blows. The crowd stepped out slowly, their eyes wide with disbelief. Whispers rose louder. He is winning. The human is winning. The robbers who had once laughed now stepped back in fear, their leader's face turned pale, his pride broken. The warlord let out a furious scream. No, I am power, I am fear, you cannot defeat me. He raised his blade high, putting all his strength into one final strike. The human clenched his fists, his voice low. I am not fear, I am defiance. The blade came down. The air split. The human moved forward with all his strength, his fist smashing into the warlord's chest at the same moment. The impact shook the ground. The warlord's blade shattered, the sound echoing, like thunder. The warlord staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief. He fell to his knees, his armor cracked, his voice broken. How? How can a human defeat me? He gasped. The human stood above him, his body shaking. blood dripping, but his eyes were steady, his voice quiet. "Because I fight for more than myself," he whispered. The warlord roared one last time before falling to the ground, defeated, his shadow broken. Silence filled the street. Then slowly, voices rose. The crowd stepped out, their eyes wide, their hearts trembling. A cheer broke through, then another, until the street was filled with cries. "He did it! The human won. He defeated the warlord." The girl ran forward, falling to her knees beside him. Her tears fell onto his bruised hands as she held them tightly. "You are hurt," she whispered. "Why did you not give up?" The human smiled weakly, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Because no one deserves to be alone." The mother stepped closer, her tired eyes filled with awe. She touched the human's shoulder gently, her voice soft. "Today, one human showed us what it means to fight back." The crowd surrounded them, no longer silent, no longer afraid. For the first time in many years, the city felt hope. The girl held the amulet close, its silver glow now steady and strong. She looked at the human, her voice soft but filled with belief. "You are not just a fighter, you are our light." The human closed his eyes, his body falling into rest, but his smile remained, his spirit alive in every heart that saw him. The night that began with fear ended with hope, and the story of one human had changed the world forever.